taken, Concord.
Thank you, sir. Most kind.
And again. Over we go. Good, steady. And now, the big one. Come on, Concord.
Message for you, sir.
Concord! Concord, speak to me!
Brave, brave Concord! You shall not have died in vain.
I'm not quite dead, sir.
Well, you shall not have been mortally wounded in vain.
I think I could pull through, sir.
Oh, I see.
Actually, I think I'm all right to come with you, sir.
No, no, sweet Concord, stay here.
No, I feel fine, actually.
Farewell, sweet Concord.
I'll just stay here then, shall I, sir?
What I remember about the release of Concord is how quiet it was. During the waning hours of the launch week, the Sony executives and I were discreetly transported to the server room. It was a silent trip. We all knew what was about to happen, what we were about to do. Did we have any doubts, any private traitorous thoughts the game could make a comeback? Perhaps. But we didn't say a word. What's up, everybody? This is the Act Man here, and today, I think it's fitting we hold a candlelight vigil for Concord. He was the best of us, he was the worst of us. Today we celebrate the life and memory of Concord, all 11 days of it. Sony's latest hero shooter, and one of, if not, actually, I think this is the biggest commercial failure in video game history.
You fucked it up!
If you look at Wikipedia's list of video game commercial failures, the numbers are actually quite impressive when compared to Concord. For example, the Sega 32X sold 665,000 units and was still considered a commercial failure. Dude, the fucking 3DO, the console that costed $700, equivalent to $1,500 in 2023, even this sold 2 million. Even the infamous E.T. the Extraterrestrial on Atari 2600, the game that is largely contributed to have caused the video game crash of 1982, sold 1.5 million copies. This is just to give you context. Concord, on the other hand, brace yourself, has been estimated to have sold only 25,000 units.
Ooh, that's kind of small.
The 3DO, the 32X, E.T., all sold monumentally better than Concord. And this game had a reported budget of over $100 million. If you crunch the numbers, it's estimated about 10,000 copies were sold on Steam. Steam takes a 30% cut of all sales. So if you were to crunch these numbers, the revenue they generated on these sales is not even enough to cover 1% of the budget. It's not even enough to recuperate 1% of that $100 million. This is, I think, the biggest commercial failure in video game history. And with a staggering 8 years of development, Concord launched to an abysmal peak player count of 660 players on Steam.
Oh my goodness!
I would be laughing if it wasn't so sad, but this is a funeral, okay? Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League had a higher player count than Concord. Ladies and gentlemen, to put this in the most extreme context possible, I give you this. I could end the video right here, to be quite honest. What's even worse to consider is that a good chunk of these players were likely journalists or content creators who received early codes, or even some of the developers. So it begs the question, how does such a huge game that Sony has invested so much money, time, and effort into, how does it collapse this hard? Today we're going to answer that question. Why has Concord failed so spectacularly? Because just 2 weeks after launch, Sony has announced that they are pulling it from stores, refunding anyone who bought it, and shutting the servers down on September 6th, which is probably about the time this video is going to go live. They're giving it the full day before treatment. Not even Redfall was shut down this quickly, and that's so strange because Redfall was a total glitch fest. It was barely even a functioning video game, and yet Concord worked. It wasn't a good game, it wasn't unique, but it functioned. And that's usually like the bar where these kinds of games land, is like they just don't fucking work and they're terrible. But Concord worked. That's what's interesting about it. In many ways, this situation is worse than the day before because that game was just a blatant scam, and this was like a genuine, real attempt to create a new first-party IP for the Sony brand. We are actually witnessing a historic moment, like something that might never happen on this level in the video game industry for a long time. While the video game crash in 1983 resulted in like $3 billion of revenue lost in the industry as a whole, as a singular product, I think Concord takes the cake. This is $100 million straight down the fucking toilet. The game director for Firewalk Studios, the developers, posted this update. An important update on Concord. Concord fans, we've been listening to your feedback since the launch of Concord on PlayStation 5 and PC, and want to thank everyone who has joined the journey abroad the North Star. Your support and the passionate community that has grown around the game has meant the world to us. I think one of the saddest things a person can witness is a situation where all hope is clearly lost. There is no light at the end of the tunnel, and yet there is still an element of positivity to it. Man, that fucking sucks for the developers. Like, you can sit here and say, yeah, it's their fucking fault for making this game nobody wanted and nobody cared to buy. But there are genuinely talented developers, you know, people on the ground floor who don't make the creative decisions, who probably put their heart and soul into this job and into this game, and it's just a total dud. And the forced positivity of it, it's just, something about that just is so sad to me. But I mean, we're still gonna make fun of it. While many qualities of the experience resonated with players, we also recognize that other aspects of the game in our initial launch didn't land the way we intended.
You don't say. You don't say. You don't say.
Yeah, the fucking foundation disintegrated. Therefore, at this time, we have decided to take the game offline beginning September 6th and explore options, including those that will better reach our players. While we determine the best path ahead, Concord sales will cease immediately, and we will begin to offer a full refund for all gamers who have purchased the game for PS5 or PC. Yada, yada, yada. We'll keep you updated, and thank you again to all the free gunners who have joined us in the Concord galaxy. All 2,000 of them. That's rough, buddy. I suppose credit where credit is due. They're not taking the small amount of money and running. They would probably face a lawsuit, you know. Although the developers could try to resuscitate the game with post-launch support, I can at least respect knowing when to call it quits. But I am once again asking you to listen, game publishers, to what I said in this video. There should not be so many failures in the game industry that I can keep referencing this video as an example of prophecy. Why was it necessary to invest hundreds of millions of dollars into this new release? It's like you're just hoping that every live service game you make is gonna be the one to make $1 billion, and none of them are. Try developing new IPs on a smaller scale, built by fewer people, with a more cohesive creative vision that takes less risks, and if it does well, work your way up. That's how it fucking used to be. The Warcraft series started as a pretty fucking jank RTS, but it grew from that. These publishers are placing gargantuan expectations upon brand new game studios and just expecting them to make like billions of dollars right out the gate. This is such a monumental blunder that it's really important to take a deep look at why Concord failed and what this means for the game industry as a whole. Now, they say they're going to find ways to re-deliver the game, but I don't know if that's possible. The game is just not interesting to people. It's not visually appealing. The gameplay doesn't look fun or interesting or like anything we haven't seen before. I don't think there's a Fortnite turnaround in the cards here. You know, Fortnite's original mode, it just kind of flew under the radar. Nobody cared too much, but Epic had the foresight to say, hey, maybe we can still make something out of this. It wasn't a lost cause. Concord has been the biggest high-profile disaster that most gamers are going to want to stay far away from the blast radius, you know? There isn't any sort of even Fallout 76 type redemption to be had here. It's not a case of No Man's Sky where the game had potential and it hooked people and they were willing to give it another shot with post-launch support. I think this is just dead and done with. Future generations of gamers will associate Concord with failure, with disaster, kind of like what Brink used to be. Anybody remember that dumpster fire? Also, can we talk about how funny it is that Sony decided to launch a live service game like this, which is dependent on a healthy player count to function, and they blocked this game's release from like 180 countries. What are you doing? Sony literally learned nothing from the Helldivers 2 debacle. Like, they looked at that and thought, you know what? We should have just launched the game like that, blocked in all these countries.
What are you doing?
To be fair though, I think those 180 countries are happy they were saved from purchasing Concord. So, you know, count your blessings. It must be pretty clear to the execs at Sony that Concord's chances of revival are basically zero. So by shutting it down, they're able to save money on the cost of running servers, the electricity for the computers in the building. Perhaps they can save some money on their taxes by writing this off as a fucking business loss. They're just getting what they can back. And this is not reassuring to any aspiring game developers, I imagine. The people of Firewalk are probably utterly demoralized, and I can sympathize with that. Albeit on a smaller scale. You know, it sucks when I put 2 weeks into a video that goes live and it's at the bottom. It's 10 out of 10, doing the worst, it's flopping. But that's only 2 weeks of work for like 1 to 2 people, you know? This was 8 years and 100 developers with the $100 million budget. I cannot even grasp my mind around the stakes and how much I would feel bad about failing on such a spectacular level. So I really do sympathize with the developers on the ground floor. As can Cliff Bleszinski, who said on Twitter, "Concord, I feel your pain." For those that don't remember, Cliff Bleszinski was the lead designer on the first 3 Gears of War games. He later moved on to create Lawbreakers, another hero shooter that was less dead on arrival than Concord. And that game was shut down just a year after launch. We thought that was a crazy shutdown, 1 year. Concord lasted 11 days. If anyone knows what the Firewalk devs are going through right now, it's Cliff Bleszinski. Now, the first major reason Concord failed is pretty obvious: bad marketing. I, like most people, saw the trailers for this game and thought, don't care. That's how our brains work, right? You have to implant a strong first impression to be like, what is this? Does it have a release date? When's that? I should put it in my calendar. Yo, homie, have you seen this Concord game? It looks kind of sick. Maybe we should try it out when it comes out. No, there was no word of mouth effect like that at all. I only learned of this game's existence a few weeks ago because I was doing research on upcoming hero shooters for the video I made on why Overwatch 2 was a pointless sequel, in which Concord was just a footnote in that video. Like, hey, maybe Concord is going to be one of those games that gives Overwatch 2 some competition.
You serious?
Really, Act Man? Really? I didn't fucking know anything about it. Okay, cut me some slack. But it's still bizarre that Concord could launch to such low player counts. Like, they had a flashy, big budget cinematic trailer that like clearly had a lot of effort put into it. It was being promoted on PlayStation's Showcase. They had plans for an animated spin-off series. They had written up a ton of lore and backstory on the characters in the universe. They had limited edition controllers tied in with this game, which actually looks pretty sick, not gonna lie. There were months of planned live service updates with weekly story vignettes to keep players coming back. How could so few people have bought or played this or cared about it? Why did it become a ghost town?
660
People used to live here. Now it's a ghost town.
One Reddit user pointed out that people who pre-ordered got access to the closed beta, and that closed beta peaked at about 1,100 players. The open beta drew in a max of 2,400. The game launched to a player count of less than 700, an indication that about half of the players who pre-ordered the game canceled it or got a refund before release. Wild. Meanwhile, Deadlock's hitting like 100K and it hasn't even fucking been announced yet. And I recently watched the cinematic reveal, and you know when you watch something and you're like, I don't feel anything. That's kind of what like a sociopath probably feels like. I just feel empty inside watching this. It comes across like a intergalactic co-op heist game, which could have been really cool. That's a cool concept. I mean, this big tower in the circling city, it looks kind of cool, but the way the characters talk is uninteresting, mega cringe. They don't look visually appealing. It's like, oh, get it? This guy likes hot sauce. Isn't that so quirky? Ah, the old shoot the hot sauce bottle at him. A classic trick. I think it's generous to call this a cheap knockoff of Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like, you can already play as the real Guardians of the Galaxy and Marvel Rivals. Just fucking play that. But you know, the setting was cool and interesting. Maybe we just needed time to get used to it. And then they said Concord would be a 5v5 hero shooter. And I think that's when most people just checked out, because there's a lot of those right now. But even in the gameplay trailers, where the footage has been curated and edited to be the best representation of the game possible, Concord still looked dull, unimaginative. I mean, just look at it. Compare this to the excitement present in the Black Ops 6 trailer. These gameplay showcases could be described as This is a brand new IP. It's a hero shooter, an established, saturated genre. You gotta blow us away with an explosive first impression. The game sounded even less appealing when the developers sat down and explained to us what Concord was. None of it sounded unique. All generic statements you could say about any first-person shooter. It's got a strong gameplay foundation, opportunities to outplay your opponent, tight core movement. Does it also have guns? And shooting? I love shooting things. If I'm not shooting, I'm not having fun. So for the people who watched these trailers and were aware of the game's existence, it probably didn't leave a strong impression, especially when it's in a showcase filled with other vastly more interesting games. In this article from The Gamer, there's a paragraph that summarizes people's sentiments perfectly. I'd never heard of Concord before the showcase, or if I had, what I'd heard or seen hadn't been memorable enough to stick in my memory. I didn't realize right off the bat that it was part of PlayStation's slate of live service titles, which set me up for a day-ruining disappointment. Damn! First impressions matter a lot, especially with new IPs, because they don't have that emotional equity with an audience to automatically grab their attention, and it didn't do a good job of grabbing people's attention. The second reason Concord failed, they missed the bus. It's gone, okay? And now the game is stuck at rock bottom. Even if this came out before Overwatch, it would have felt immediately outdated after Overwatch came out. Overwatch 1, yes. If you're gonna show up 8 years late to the party, you better bring some goddamn good chips and a keg of beer. Where's the beer? It's not just that the hero shooter genre is oversaturated, it's that Concord did nothing to differentiate itself from its competitors. As if nowhere along this 8 stretch of development, they thought, hey, maybe we should change directions and try to innovate and adapt to the changing gaming landscape and what the current expectations are. I mean, you see this innovation in hero shooters like Deadlock, which is arguably more of a MOBA than a hero shooter. The aspects of Dota and League of Legends work to great success in Deadlock. It's a lot of fun. It doesn't play or feel like anything else out there. It's a genuinely innovative title, and it's in alpha, and the art style is still leagues better than this. They haven't even finished the fucking graphics on this game, and it still looks better. Marvel Rivals has the benefit of the Marvel IP and the hundreds of characters they can pull creative inspiration from. NetEase has already worked on Overwatch in the past, so they have experience with that type of game. Apex Legends blends hero shooters with the Battle Royale formula. Valorant mixes hero shooters with Counter-Strike. It's these combinations of different ingredients that makes the beverage taste unique. Concord doesn't have any of that. There's no X factor. And it's late to a trend we've all been familiar with for the last 8 years. The third reason, and let's play a game. One of these is not like the other. Can you help me figure out which one? Is it this one? No? What about this one? Oh, I see. It's Concord with a $40 price tag when every other competitor is free to play. Gee, who could have seen this one coming? That this was a bad decision. At a time where inflation is also especially high in the US, gamers have to be wise with what they spend their money on, and they're likely to be even more conservative with their money because of games like Concord that turn into total duds. I don't know what to say. This is just a complete miscalculation. This is 2014 Seahawks at the Super Bowl throwing it when they're on the 2-yard line instead of giving it to Marshawn Lynch. It's just a complete disaster of a calculation. The main appeal of live service games is that most of the times they're free. You might deal with some jank and bullshit, but the game's free, and if you want to support it with microtransactions, you can. So the barrier to entry is torn down and the business model is mostly geared towards cosmetics. That's the trade-off. But trying to do both is really difficult if the game isn't good enough. It's like trying to milk 2 cows at once. Asking for $40 up front is like forcing your guests in Roller Coaster Tycoon to pay to use the bathroom. It's like, no thanks, I'll just shit my pants. Thank you. However, games that manage to blend an upfront cost with a live service model can sell well. Helldivers 2 is a prime example, but they also really didn't go too hard on the monetization. It's also been fumbling on the live service front, and that's kind of sad, but Arrowhead more than made their money back and then some. But Helldivers 2 also offered players something they had never seen or played before. It had style, grace. Concord has a funny face. Speaking of, the fourth reason the game failed, to put it nicely, it's visually unappealing. That is the nicest way to describe it. Not just the character designs, but the UI, the weapons, the maps, everything. It's generic, it's ugly. Visually, everything has a great amount of detail and high graphical fidelity, but it lacks style, it lacks charm. It means Concord only looks like lots of money was invested into it, but not much creativity. This is a hero shooter. The heroes are the selling point. This game has to have character. If I don't like the look, feel, or sound of these characters, then there's no reason for anybody to play it. So let's look at the roster, shall we? Teo. He looks like he's geared up to play laser tag. I'm really not sure what's up with the asymmetric, like, one blue eye thing. I'm guessing this is like the Soldier 76 of Concord. Hamar looks like she got her outfit at Value Village, like she went to a thrift store. Out of all the ways you can cast fire in video games, why tiny little balls? Starchild is—
Oh my god! What's wrong with your face?
What the fuck is this supposed to be? The bright blue skin tone? This looks like my fucking custom Oblivion character that I'm trying to make as ugly as humanly possible. Oh my sweet lord. This lady looks like if Warhammer 40k created a kids show to teach infants how to count. She looks like she would be the main character. She would be the Steve of Blue's Clues. Her design looks like a 6-year-old's interpretation of the Fallout power armor. Like, impressive for a 6-year-old. For $100 million? No siree. Ladies and gentlemen, it's right there. The red flag. I mean, it's in plain sight. They warned us. They tried to stop us from purchasing this game. They literally put a red flag on the character design. There's just nothing visually appealing about any of these characters. If you look at them, they're just all horrendously ugly. Or they have like such contrasting color schemes. Or like this guy Jabali. Like, isn't that a fucking stupid name? Jabali? Look at him. He's got like a cowboy hat, Mad Max goggles, a fucking portable CD player attached to his chest, and a turquoise what the fuck is this character design? Even the robot, dude. He's literally called a trash dispenser. He's a fucking trash can. I bet Claptrap could beat the shit out of this guy. This is the fucking prototype for IG-88. This is IG-88's fat brother. This motherfucker looks like the Tiger brand rice cooker, man. Is there even one character that doesn't look like dog shit?
Come on, let's go!
Ladies and gentlemen, while recording this video about why Concord failed, the Act Man tragically died from cringe. Did you know that over 700 people a year die from cringe? It's not a whole lot, but it is more than the peak concurrent player count of Concord. Usually it's self-inflicted deaths caused by one's own existence, but in this case, oh, he's alive.
So there's nothing about these heroes that looks cool. I'm confused by the art style. The color scheme is off-putting, and I don't know what the fuck any of these people, or if they're even people, are supposed to be. Compare this to any character in Overwatch and it's no contest. And that's the thing, as crazy as this sounds, people want to look cool in video games. This shit ain't cool. This is lame. Either make it cool or make it sexy. It's not hard.
I don't think tits could have saved this game though, fellas.
The design of Concord's characters aren't just ugly, they tell you nothing about the character themselves. Let's pretend none of you have ever played Team Fortress 2. And I'm pitching the game to you, and I tell you, it's a hero shooter or class-based shooter. I want you to tell me what you think this guy does. Kind of looks like he doesn't want his face to be seen. You know, maybe he's a stealthy kind of guy. What about him? Big machine gun? He's got a bigger frame than the other guys? Bald, probably a tough dude, can dish out a lot of damage, can take a lot of damage, but can't move fast. You see how easy it is to like differentiate between good and bad art styles? What do you think the fucking rice cooker guy does? Did you guess that he's a robot that shoots fucking vacuum cleaners? The point is, Concord isn't interesting to look at. I don't want to look at it. So between the unappealing visual design, the $40 price tag, the generic nature of the gameplay, it's no wonder why Concord failed to capture a meaningful audience. But what is perplexing is how this was okayed by anybody. This is like Sony's Redfall. And right now, Sony is in dire straits. In 2022, they announced they had 10 live service games in production, and 6 of them would be released by March 2026. Layoffs have hit Sony developers, changing priorities for some of these live service titles. Others have been outright canceled, and some have become flops like Concord. This is representative of a wild overreach, an overexpansion and overinvestment into something Sony doesn't know how to market or create. They're just throwing money away in the trash can and lighting it all on fire. It has to stop. It's easy to point and laugh at the ridiculous character designs, but truly it's tragic that so much money and time and effort has gone to waste in such spectacular fashion. Actually, fashion isn't even a word you can use when describing this game. I sure am glad they didn't use, $10 million, $20 million to make a new Jak and Daxter. Really glad we didn't get that instead. And we've already seen the industry hit with tens of thousands of layoffs, and critical flops like Concord will do nothing but contribute to this declining health of the video game industry and the hobby we all care about. Something needs to change, and it needs to change now. But these are the reasons why Concord has failed and why Sony is shutting it down just 2 weeks after launch. But what do you think? Which of these characters would you bang? None of them? Me too. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the Act Man for more awesome content. All right, everyone. We've paid our respects, and it's time to say adieu. Farewell, the sweet Concord. Farewell.